Hello, Cs. Welcome back to the Other Side of Dreams podcast. I am your sister, walking with you through the seasons of reinventions and growth. I'm still on the journey too, but I've walked far enough to see what is possible. This is where midlife women rise, rediscover purpose, and build what's next. And if I can do it, so you can. Quick housekeeping. What I'm sharing here is from my life experiences and what I've learned along the way. This is not a therapy. And if you need help, please seek a professional support when you need it. Hello, sis. Before we start today, I want you to take one slow breath with me. Not to calm yourself down, but to arrive. Because this episode isn't about motivations, it's about honesty. Let me begin with something many women are afraid to admit. Working harder doesn't feel safe anymore. It used to for a long time. Effort meant protections. And if you work harder and you stayed afloat, if you push through and things work out, and if you keep going and you were okay. And for many years, that was true. But somewhere along the way, that equations stopped working. Not because you failed and not because you became lazy, but because your body, your seasons, and the world change. And today, we're going to talk about why working harder is no longer protecting you and what that actually means. Because this is not about quitting, it's not about giving up, and it's about noticing what is reality now. Let me say this clearly. You didn't lost your work ethic. Your work ethics outgrew the system you're in. And many women listening right now have done everything they were taught to do. They showed up early, they stayed late, and they didn't complain. They were reliable and they were responsible. And still, something feels fragile because the safety that hard works used to provide feels thinner now. And that realization can be deeply unsettling because if effort isn't enough anymore, what is enough? That questions can feel very scary, right? And so many women respond to that fear by doing the only thing they knew. They work harder, they take extra shifts, they push through pain, and they ignored fatigue. And they tell themselves, I rest later. But sometimes that later doesn't arrive the same way it used to. Let's admit it. Because the body remembers and the body eventually asks for a different conversation for a moment because this matters. When you were younger, recovery was quicker and you could bounce back right away and you could stretch yourself. But now, recovery takes longer. Pain always lingers, and energy doesn't reset overnight. That's not weakness, that's our body's biology. But the workplace didn't adjust for that. Let's be honest, the economy didn't slow down, and the bills didn't soften either. That expectation also didn't change. So when women adapted by pushing themselves harder than their bodies, were designed to sustain. And for a while, that worked until it didn't. And when it stopped working, many women turned the blame inwards. They said things like, "Why can't I handle this anymore? And why am I so tired? And other people are doing fine. What's wrong with me?" But that is the truth. Working harder stop protecting you because effort alone cannot protect a body that needs care or a life that needs structure. That's not failure. That's a system mismatch. And mismatch requires adjustment, not shame. Let me say something that many midlife women feels uncomfortable at first. There comes a point in life where survival strategies must change. And what keep you safe in your 30s and 40s may quietly harm you in your 50s and beyond. And that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means you've arrived at a different seasons. But many women resist the truth because slowing down feels dangerous for them. Because if working harder isn't the answer, the fear becomes, what else is there? And instead of sitting with that question, women push harder because pushing feels familiar. And familiar doesn't always mean safe. And sometimes it just means practice. And let's talk about the invisible promise many women believed in. The promise that said, if you're loyal, you'll be protected. If you work hard, you'll be secure. And if you sacrifice, it will pay off. And while that promise wasn't a lie, it was incomplete because it didn't account for aging bodies or health changes or caregiving exhaustions or economic shifts. And when those things enter the picture, effort alone cannot hold everything together. That realization can feel like grief. And grief for the version of life where working harder work. And grief for the certainty you used to feel. And it's okay to name that grief because pretending it doesn't exist keep women trapped in cycles that drain them. Here's something I want you to hear deeply. Not needing to work harder does not mean you are giving up. It means you are being honest about capacity. Capacity is not character. Capacity change. Character doesn't. And when capacity change, wisdoms adapts. Let me pause here and ask you a gentle questions. What has working harder cost you lately? Your sleep, your health, your peace, and your joy. And if effort is costing more than it gives, it's no longer protection, it's erosions. And erosions happens quietly. That's why many women don't notice it right away. They just feel more tired, more irritable, more anxious, and more afraid of slowing down. Because slowing down feels like exposure. And here's the fear underneath that fear. If I stop pushing, everything will fall apart. Let me offer you a different perspective. What if everything is fragile because you're the only thing holding it together? That's a heavy burden to carry, and no one was meant to carry it alone. And this episode isn't here to tell you to stop working. It's here to tell you that protection now requires more effort. Protection now requires foresight, and it requires structures, and it requires planning, and it requires gentleness, not as weakness, but as strategy. And gentleness is not optional anymore because your body is not a machine and your life is not meant to be sustained by pain. When women hear gentle, many think it means soft or passive. But gentle doesn't mean inactive. Gentle means intentional. Gentle means choosing way of living that doesn't punish your body for surviving. Gentle means building support before crisis arrives. And this is where many women get stuck because no one taught us how to shift from effort based safety to structure based safety. We were taught to endure, not to design. So when endurance stops working, women feels lost. But being lost is not the same as being stuck. Being lost simply means you're ready for different map. And that's what this season is about. Not abandoning the responsibility, but redefining what responsibility looks like now. Responsibility might mean acknowledging that your body has limits and planning for stability instead of assuming strength will cover everything, and letting go of the belief that rest is earned only through exhaustions. And here's something important. Wanting a life that doesn't depend entirely on your physical labor is not laziness. It's foresight, it's care, and it's dignity. And many women sense this truth long before they can articulate it. They just feel uneasy, restless, afraid, tired of being tired. And if that's you, you're not imagining things. You're noticing reality. And noticing reality is not negative, it's protective. This podcast is not here to tell you what to do next. It's here to help you listen differently to your body, to your fear, and to your wisdom. In the coming episode, we're going to talk about stability, preparations, and what it means to build support that doesn't require you to burn yourself out. Not fast, not dramatically, and not recklessly, but thoughtful. And for now, I want you to hold this truth gently. Working harder is no longer protecting you. And that's not a personal failure. It's an invitation to change the patterns. And change doesn't start with action. It is start with awareness. And you don't have to solve everything today. You just have to stop telling yourself that exhaustion is the price of safety. It isn't. And it doesn't have to be your future. Thank you for being here today. If you enjoyed this conversation, follow the shows and share it with a woman who needs it. And if you have a story or topic in your heart, reach out. This space is open.